Today, we're exploring a pretty massive structural question about time, choice, and who we're actually becoming. We're going to step away from all that typical life advice, the standard self-help formulas, and just observe. We want to look at the underlying mechanics of our decisions through the lens of reflective humanism, focusing on this invisible architecture connecting who you are today with who you will be tomorrow. Think about this phrase for a second. I am doing this for my future self. We've all said it, right? Or at least thought it. We use it to justify our hard work, our patience, our discipline. But when we say that, we're actually making a huge, unexamined assumption about the nature of time and identity. We are assuming we know exactly who that future self is going to be. We do these incredibly ordinary things every single day. Saving money, staying up late to study, resting, making promises, maintaining relationships. And we do them assuming there's this direct, totally uncomplicated link to the person we're eventually going to become. It's like we think we're just packing a suitcase for a trip we're taking tomorrow. But if we really pause and observe this, there's a fundamental tension hiding right there. Are you actually packing for someone who even wants to go on that same trip? Here's the vital distinction we need to make. You and your future self are continuous, but you are not identical. A decade from now, sure, you will absolutely be a later phase of the same life. That continuity is real. But your values, your physical condition, your relationships, they might fundamentally change. What feels so urgently important to you today might mean literally nothing to the you of 10 years from now. It's just a structural reality. We are making choices for someone who is connected to us through time, but who might end up with a completely different worldview. Because of this, your future self doesn't just start from a blank page. They inherit a terrain. And that terrain is built by both the resources and the burdens we transfer forward. Obviously, we easily recognize that we transfer money, health, and skills. But we also transfer unresolved problems. Every task you delay, every difficult conversation you put off, that is quite literally a transfer of a burden across time to that future phase of yourself. You are actively altering the landscape they'll have to navigate. This is what we can call the accumulation structure in action. Think about it. Those everyday, microscopic decisions, the $20 spent today, the sleep you skipped, the problem you ignored, they don't just vanish into thin air. Time processes them. They accumulate, and they solidify into the actual structural conditions of tomorrow. The present self leaves behind a specific topography, and the future self has absolutely no choice but to start their journey from those exact coordinates. Which brings us to a really fascinating dilemma, and it's rooted in the asymmetry of time. The present self is constantly altering the conditions the future self is going to inherit. But the future self, they can't travel backward to intervene in your present decisions. They can't just tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, actually, I don't want you to sacrifice your health for that promotion. This temporal asymmetry right here is the entire structural basis for the question of intertemporal responsibility. We're making irreversible decisions for a self who cannot yet speak up for themselves. So what does it mean to actually be responsible for that future self? Let's look at two different models. Model A is basically what society usually pushes. Figure out what you value right now, predict the best possible outcome based on those values, optimize your present life to get there, and lock in the path. But Model B, which aligns with reflective humanism, looks at it differently. It suggests accepting that the future is inherently uncertain. True responsibility might not be about designing this correct life in advance. It might just mean avoiding the unnecessary removal of your future self's ability to reconsider. It's about preserving their right to choose again. Now, let's be super clear about something here. We absolutely shouldn't idealize optionality as some sort of absolute good. Living a human life means making choices, and making a choice inherently means closing certain doors. You can't just hover in a state of endless potential forever without eventually paying a heavy price for it. In reality, you just can't keep every single option open forever. Whether it's formal education, picking a career, moving to a new country, getting married, or just plain biological realities, at some point gravity takes hold. Paths are going to close. Absolute reversibility just doesn't exist, and honestly, trying to force it creates its own kind of paralysis. So if we can't keep all our options open, how do we actually practice this intertemporal responsibility? The key lies in transparency. Instead of trying to never close any doors, our responsibility is to leave a clear record of the decisions we do make.
What did we choose? What became unavailable because of it? And crucially, why was the decision made based on the values we held at the time? Providing this kind of transparency gives our future selves the context they need to reinterpret their own history. They aren't just blindly obeying a command from the past, they have the actual scaffolding to understand their trajectory and adjust their course from a place of clarity.
And as we do all this planning, we really need to watch out for a common trap, which we can call the risk of compression. Sometimes we get so hyperfixated on serving that future self that we completely exhaust the present self. But destroying your present self, your physical health, your peace, your time, just to protect a future version of you, that's a massive structural failure. You're ruining the very vehicle that's meant to carry that future. We have to hold both present sustainability and future flexibility together, because the present phase of your life is just as valid and just as vital as the future phase. This whole framework completely changes how we should interact with modern technology, especially when we use AI for life planning, career tracking, or financial optimization. Usually, we plug in our present preferences, the AI heavily optimizes that data, and it spits out this highly fixed recommended future path. But the deep structural risk here is that the AI treats our current preferences as permanent, static future values. It's optimizing a path for a person who, inevitably, is going to change. So, consistent with reflective humanism, we need a bit of a paradigm shift here. AI shouldn't act as this oracle that decides our ultimate destiny. Instead, it should function as an interference plane, a tool that simply visualizes the options and the costs that remain. Instead of locking in your present values, AI should highlight reversibility and return points. Instead of ignoring the friction of real life, it should calculate switching costs and show us exactly which paths are going to permanently close. It should act as an environment that helps us observe our choices, not a machine that dictates them for us. As we wrap up this explainer, we're left to observe one final lingering tension. When we say we're doing something for our future self, what do we actually mean by that? Does valuing our future self mean forcing them onto a rigid path of what we currently define as success? Or does true intertemporal responsibility mean doing our best today while intentionally leaving them to structural space, the resources, and the freedom to say, I was wrong and I'm changing my mind? Definitely something to think about the next time you make a major choice.